Hi kids! Welcome to another version of a really bad video by Mrs. Buckley. Today we're going to talk about the volume of cylinders and prisms, and that is section 8.5 in your textbook. So let's take a look at what we know about cylinders and prisms from the work that we did earlier. So here's my cylinder. It has a circular base. In fact, it has two of them. They're parallel to each other. They're congruent. And this curved side is at a right angle. That's how we know this is it's at a right angle to the bases. And that's how we know that this is a cylinder. So two congruent circles and this curved piece along the edge at a right angle to the bases. Okay, same thing with a prism, rectangular prism, or any kind of prism actually. So here's one base, it's a rectangle. Same thing with the bottom. So we have two congruent, parallel bases, and the lateral faces, the sides, are all rectangles. The lateral faces are at right angles to the bases, the top and the bottom. So, if we want to find the volume, we're talking about not how loud your music is, but how much fits inside the box, or how much crab fits inside that can. Or we can also think of it as how much space it takes up. So if I drop this into a big gallon of water, how much space would it be taking up in that gallon of water? So volume. Now I want to look at a different way of thinking about the volume formulas for prisms and cylinders. So let's think about this. Volume equals big B times H. Now, I know that doesn't look familiar to you because it's not really the formula that you've been asked to use in the past. Here's the formula for area of a rectangular prism that you have been asked to use. So volume equals length times width times height. See this LW part right there? That actually is the area of the base, right? It's a rectangle. When I cover up that height, cover up the height, that big B right here, area of the base is the length times the width. So that's where this formula came from. Now, I want to show you something else. Let's take a look at the way you have seen the volume of a cylinder in the past. You've seen it like this. Volume equals pi r squared h. And that's correct. Absolutely correct. But again, see this pi r squared part? That is the circular area of the base. So strangely enough, this formula right here, volume equals area of the base times the height, works for a prism and a cylinder. It doesn't matter so much with the cylinders and rectangular prisms, but tomorrow when we talk about triangular prisms, it is going to matter. So let's take a look at a couple different problems. Here's a reminder of what your work needs to look like. You know I can really be a pain about that, and I will continue to be a pain about how you show your work for geometry things or working with any types of formulas. So you're going to copy the formula. You substitute your given values. We're ready to calculate. And then you want to include your unit with an answer. So let me get some paper out here. Now I'm using pen because it shows up better on the video, but you know you need to be working in pencil. So let's see. I have a very poorly drawn rectangular prism right here. The first thing that I always want you to do is label which is the length, the width, and the height. Doesn't matter so much now, but when we're working on surface area, it matters a lot. So I'm going to call that my length, I'm going to call that my width, and I'm going to call that my height. So let me get my pen back. So again, I'm going back up here to the steps. So I have volume equals length times width times height. Volume equals my length of 5, my width of 3, and my height of 4. I can multiply those in any order because of the commutative property of multiplication. And when I multiply those all together, I get 60. I copied my formula, I substituted my given values, I calculated, and now I'm ready to include a unit with my answer. And since we're talking about volume, how many cubes fit inside this, it's going to be meters cubed. So there's an example of a rectangular prism. Now let's look at another poorly drawn figure, but this time we're going to look at a cylinder. So exact same steps for showing your work. All right, make some room for myself here. So I'm copying my formula. So volume equals pi r squared h. Volume equals, let's use 3.14 for pi. So the radius is 6, so I'll write 6 squared times, let's see, the height is 8. Now remember GEMDAS. It's like gravity, it never goes away. Every problem is a GEMDAS problem. So I know that since there are no grouping symbols, I'll need to take care of that exponent first. So I'm doing 3.14 times 6 squared is 36 times 8. And of course you're using a calculator on this. When I multiply all that together, I get 904 and 32 hundredths inches cubed. Again, I'm talking about how much stuff, how many cubes that are an inch on a side will fit into that cylinder. So it's inches cubed. So that's it for volume of cylinders and rectangular prisms. We'll talk about the triangular prisms tomorrow. For now, you can get started on the practice problems for this topic. I know you'll do a great job, show your work, and have a great day.